I'm Barbara Sobel. I am a clinical nutritionist here at Functional Medicine San Francisco. And today we're going to be talking about sleep. So for many of us, with sleep debt, we've sort of forgot what really, truly feeling rested feels like. We tend to rely on our alarm clocks. We like stimulants like coffee and energy drinks, sometimes sugar or chocolate. We might not be spending as much time outside, using a lot of lights, electronic devices that can interfere with our sleep. How do we really know that we're sleep deficient? There's a couple ways we can tell. One, we can monitor our sleep and see how many hours we're getting, which I'd like to talk about a little bit later. I have had a really interesting experience in preparing for this and doing my own little study about myself. But some, signs that maybe you aren't getting enough sleep are you really tired all the time? And is it not due to other things? Do you fall asleep reading or watching TV? I know when my kids were really little, I would read to them at night and I would fall asleep and they wouldn't, which is a pretty good sign I was sleep deprived. Do you fall asleep in the movies when you're in the car? Do you crave caffeine in the sugar in the afternoon? Do you need to take a nap? Those are all kind of signs that you might be sleep deficient. So just kind of things to think in the back of your head. I want to talk a little bit about why we need sleep. And really, we spend about a third of our time sleeping if we're doing as much as we should be. And what's important is the quality of our sleep and then getting enough sleep at the right time. So it's a quality and a quantity issue. And really, sleep is as essential to our survival as food and water. Without sleep, we don't perform or maintain the pathways in our brain that let us learn, create new memories, and it's harder to concentrate and respond quickly. If you get a chance and want to Google 60 Minutes, they did some tests, or they went to a lab where the researchers were testing students and what happens when they don't sleep. And the reaction time, they thought they were fine, but was significantly slowed. There's some interesting statistics in that about accidents on the road and truckers and things like that. We just momentarily fall asleep and, obviously it can be life-threatening. So sleep is important to our brain. It has to do, it's important for how our nerve cells communicate with each other. They also have found out that recently they found out that our brain cells actually shrink at night, and that leaves a little bit more room in our brain for us to clear out the toxins that we develop during the day. And those can be even things like leftover, microscopic pieces of cells and all sorts of things. So we need to do all that cleanup while we sleep. Sleep actually affects every tissue in our and system in our body, our brain, our heart, our lungs, certainly our metabolism. We often find that when we're tired, we crave things like sugar or carbohydrate-rich things to give us a little bit of energy. Lack of sleep can affect our immune system, our mood, and our disease resistance. We can become more susceptible to colds if we if we're not getting enough sleep. So the other thing that's really interesting about sleep, I know I used to think that it was just something we did and everything kind of slowed down, but it's actually quite complex and a dynamic process that affects, we don't even know all the ways that our body changes. And sleep involves a lot of different areas within our brain. It involves the hypothalamus, which is sort of this peanut-sized structure deep in our brain, and it contains groups of nerve cells that control sleep and arousal. And it's all very affected by light exposure and kind of our behavioral rhythms in the day. And the brain stem at the base of our brain communicates with the hypothalamus and helps control different transitions between wake and sleep. And it plays a special role with REM sleep, which is the rapid eye movement sleep. And that particular part of the brain, the brainstem, particularly the pons and the medulla, relax our muscles when we're in REM sleep so that we don't start acting out our dreams, which could be quite dangerous. So it's very much a survival method. It's interesting when you can sometimes, if you have a small child, see when they're in REM sleep because you can kind of see the movements with their eyes. The pineal gland is located also within the brain, and it receives signals from the hypothalamus and increases production of melatonin, which is a hormone that puts us to sleep. And the melatonin helps with or makes peaks and valleys that help with our body's circadian rhythm to the external light and darkness. And, that's one of the reasons why when we get jet lag, because the days and the nights can be off, that's all related with our pineal gland and our melatonin and how we're interpreting light and our own body's circadian rhythm. And then there are a couple other, the basal forebrain, sort of near the front and bottom of the brain, also promotes sleep and wakefulness, and the midbrain helps with arousal. So that sort of energy part of the day. And the amygdala is very involved in REM sleep. So that's just sort of a basic structural how sleep affects, or where sleep is involved in our brain. But what I think is really interesting is that it is all sorts. It's throughout our brain, and sleep is very active. For our brain, and it's an active. It's not just we're out of it asleep. There's different functions for different parts and different messages going on. So there's several different stages of sleep. There's sort of two basic types of sleep. There's REM sleep, or rapid eye movement sleep, and then non-REM sleep. And non-REM sleep has three different stages, and each is linked to specific brain waves and neural activity. And so we cycle through them several times during the evening. So stage one is non-REM sleep. It's sort of that changeover from wakefulness to sleep. It's not very deep. It's a short period. It's a light sleep. Your heart rate and breathing and eye movements kind of slow down. Muscles relax, but there's some occasional twitching and things like that. And your brain waves begin to slow down a little bit from their daytime patterns. Stage two is also non-REM sleep, and this is the period of light sleep just before you enter deep sleep. So your heart rate and breathing slow, muscles relax farther, your body temperature usually drops, eye movement stop, brain activity slows, but there's some brief bursts of electrical activity that go on. And we spend more time in our stage two sleep than any other sleep stage. Stage three is the final non-REM sleep period, and it's sort of a deep sleep. And it's the deep sleep that we need to feel refreshed in the morning. If you've ever had an experience where you're not getting it, you wake up in the morning and you just don't feel rested. It occurs a little bit longer periods during the first half of the night, heartbeat and breathing slow to the lowest levels of the night, and your muscles relax. And in this stage, it can be very difficult for someone to wake you up. Your brain waves become quite slow. And then REM sleep, your eyes rapidly move from side to side. This is where most dreaming happens, but not all of it. Brain wave activity is closer to what it is in wakefulness than it is in other stages. Breathing becomes a little faster and irregular. heart rate and blood pressure increase almost to waking levels, which is interesting. And then again, we have arms and legs are paralyzed so that we don't start acting out our dreams. So there's two major biological mechanisms that control sleep: our own circadian rhythm, and then our need for homeostasis, where we need to work together. Our body works in conjunction to regulate awake and sleep time. So circadian rhythms can be affected by all sorts of things, everything from, what our job is and when we have time, when our time is to sleep and when not. But body temperature, metabolism, the release of our hormones, the controlling your timing when you're sleeping. And circadian rhythm is basically on a 24-hour clock, which can get off, especially if we're living somewhere in summer or winter where there's big changes in our environment. So homeostasis keeps track of our need for sleep and reminds us that after certain times a day, it's, we need sleep. And the factors that can influence that are medical conditions, medications, stress, sleep environment, what we eat, what we drink, and our exposure to light. So that can make a difference. I'm going to talk real quick about how much sleep we need and looking at how we're measuring our sleep, and then get into some solutions for people that are struggling with sleep. So how much sleep do we need? There's no magic number for sleep hours for everyone in the same age group, but babies initially sleep 16 to 18 hours a day, which can help with their growth and development, especially in the brain. School-age children and teens, on average, 9.5, 10 hours of sleep per night, particularly difficult with teenagers because their internal body clocks don't line up with their school schedule, and they often are very sleep deprived. Most adults need 7 to 9 hours of sleep. It can be difficult to get that given schedules, and as we get older, there tends to be more things that interrupt our sleep, like medications and things like that, which can make sleep difficult. We often hear that older people don't need as much sleep, and I don't believe that that's true. I think that they just aren't getting as much sleep. So in general, most of us are not getting enough sleep. Many people feel they can catch up on the weekends for missed sleep. That's pretty hard to do. And one of the things that I think is really interesting is taking a good look at your sleep. I thought I was sleeping enough, and I recently got a wearable sleep tracker, a Fitbit Charge 2, and I started monitoring my sleep for a couple weeks and realized that I was getting probably an hour and a half of less sleep per night than I thought I was. And then it kind of made sense with some other things that were going on. Sometimes I would want a nap. I was craving a coffee in the afternoon. So these devices are not like being in a sleep lab where you're going to get really, accurate information, but they can show us a trend that's going on. And if we look at it for a couple weeks, we can see what time we're getting up, what time we're going to sleep, how much of each stage we're getting, when we're waking up in the middle of the night, and really kind of dial down and set some goals. One of the goals I set was to go to sleep earlier. I actually thought I was going to sleep at one time, and then when I looked, I was really 45 minutes later than I thought I was going to sleep. So have implemented some changes just to kind of shift 15 minutes every week and looking for improvements. There is one thing I will say about the sleep trackers. There's some that are wearables. Fitbit makes some great ones. They have a couple different models. Motive Ring is one that you wear on your finger. Leaf Urban is geared towards women, but it makes it's kind of a pendant that you can wear as a bracelet or a necklace, and it's nice. There's a couple non-wearables that you would put on your bed or in your pillow. MFit QS and S Plus, Bedit, Witherings, and Sleep Pace. But really check the reviews before you get them and make sure that there's nothing going on in the news like they're going out of business. Jawbone had several of them, several different models of sleep trackers, and did lots of marketing, and now they're out of business. So it's well worth doing a little bit of homework just to make sure that you're to make sure that you're not that you're getting something that's going to be around and is supported. So we've kind of talked about how getting sleep is crucial for health. There are, but the question is we all kind of know that, but what do we do if we're having problems falling asleep, staying asleep? So I'm going to go through a couple different things. I have 10 different kind of topics to talk about. I want to show you some of the things that I use or recommend. And then we'll answer some questions. So planning your sleep is key. Put it in your schedule. Plan the time it takes for you to do your bedtime routine, kind of fall asleep and get to sleep. Set your alarm on your phone so that you get a reminder of when to wake up in the morning. When to start getting ready for bed. Just because then you're not getting 5 more minutes, which turns into a half an hour, and then it makes a big deal on your sleep. Plan to go to sleep and wake up at the same time each day. This helps train your biological clock, and then you can create a bedtime routine that works for you around that. And that's something to shoot for doing your bedtime routine most nights. If it's a Saturday night and you're going out, and you're home late, you might not want to take a hot bath when you get home and delay sleep even more. If you can't fall asleep, it's really important not to stay in bed. We want our brain to associate our bed with sleep. So if it's more than 20, 30 minutes that you can't fall asleep, leave your bedroom, go to a relaxing other room. If you work at home and have a home office, don't go in your home office. Go in another room, try a meditation, maybe something warm to drink, maybe read a book, and just set an expectation for yourself that your room is not for doing your bedroom's not for doing all sorts of activities. It's really for sleeping. And then there's some things that we can do in the evening to kind of get us prepared for sleep. When you have a small child and you tell them it's bedtime, you just put them in their crib, they're not going to fall asleep. They need a little bit of help. And as adults, we need help too. We're busy and stimulated, and we have things coming at us all day, and we need a little time to relax and kind of get ourselves to make that shift where we're ready to sleep. So avoid using computers, televisions, tablets, and phones for 3 hours before bed. This can be really hard, especially if, we have a lot going on, or maybe we're helping kids with homework or things like that. So there are programs like Flux and Night Mode that can reduce the blue light on any of these devices, and I'd recommend that you start using those, put them on your computer and things like that. The other thing you can do is get some orange glasses. I got these on Amazon, and they just help they block the blue light, which sorry, it's hard to concentrate in the middle of the day in them. They'll block the blue light, which is very stimulating to us, and so now we can start creating some more melatonin. In terms of our bedroom, blackout shades or an eye mask, the travel kind, can be really helpful. I like to, there's a couple lights that, computer related things that shine in my bedroom. I actually take this with me when I travel because I find that it happens in hotel rooms all the time. It's not here. I get a little bit of, I usually take a smaller thing, but a little bit of dark electrical tape. Sometimes you can find black. I had one that was dark green, and I'll just put it over any of the little buttons that are red or blue, just because I find that those computer lights can be really irritating and annoying to me. As you're getting ready for bed in the evening, turn down the lights in the house if you can, if you have them on dimmers, so that it's not so bright, but just kind of bringing the light down a little bit in the evening. And kind of the flip side of that is getting a lot of light during the day. When you wake up in the morning, and some of us wake up and it's still dark, but when it is light, can we open up the blinds? Is there any chance of getting outside, for your breakfast or taking a walk or something like that early in the morning? You can also get a blue light or a Lux Bright light to use in the morning. It's a light machine. It helps a lot with winter for depression, but it also can bring a lot of light in, especially in the mornings. And especially in the winter, it can be very helpful to wake you up so that your body can go through its whole clock and then in the evening fall asleep. Environment. Is your bedroom kind of cool and quiet? If not, what can you do to make it a little cooler? Can you put a fan in or something like that? Do you need to use earplugs? Would a white noise machine or maybe even a HEPA filter help with that? So those are, sometimes alarm clocks can be really noisy or clicking. So just making sure that you've worked through any of those issues. Then also making sure that your bedroom is a place you like to be. Is it a color that's soothing to you? Are your sheets and bedding or bedclothes comfortable? If you're sleeping in sweats, are you giving yourself a message that you're getting up to exercise? Or, or those special ones that you just wear for sleeping. Food and beverage during the day can have some pretty big impacts on how we sleep at night. So finishing eating food 2 to 3 hours before bed, if possible, is very helpful because it gives you time to really digest your food so that you can rest when you sleep and your body's not busy digesting. Alcohol can have a big effect on sleep, and I really recommend that people stop drinking alcohol 3 hours or more before bed if possible. Caffeine, some people are slow metabolizers and some people can metabolize caffeine fairly quickly. As a general rule, I'd say probably avoid caffeine after 2. But if you're more sensitive or slower metabolizer, really making a 12 o'clock limit or earlier, knowing your body. There are some herbal teas that can be really helpful in supporting sleep, and including a cup of tea into your evening routine can be just another way to tell your body it's time to start winding down. So my personal favorite is chamomile. Passion flower and lemon balm are also really good options to try. And sometimes you can find a mix of them or make a mix yourself. So again, lemon balm, chamomile, and passion flower are all good for sleep. So a couple other lifestyle things we can do to help us sleep and stay asleep. Avoid late afternoon or evening naps. If you're going to take a nap, which can be quite helpful, a 20 to 30-minute nap is best unless you're quite sleep deprived or you're sick and really need more. Completing any sort of aerobic exercise 3 hours or more before going to bed can help with sleep. If you're reading before bed, consider like a good neutral book. It's not really the time to be reading an intense suspense mystery. Using a tablet or a phone where you've put on the night side setting or made the brightness as low as possible. Using a small lamp that just lights up the reading material and not the whole room can be very helpful. Avoid doing any sort of anxiety-provoking activities close to bedtime. So bills, watching an intense TV show or the movies, if you can, and avoid having a heated discussion or argument with someone before bed, because that's just going to make it harder to go to sleep and calm down. If you're having anxious or disturbing thoughts, try writing them down in a journal and then maybe put some time on your calendar where you're going to deal with whatever that issue is so that you can relax and know that it's you have a place for that and a place to address it. Another thing I really like to do is add some essential oils to either a diffuser or sometimes I'll put it a little bit on my wrists or the bottom of my feet. Lavender is great for sleep, lavender. And that can be just, running a diffuser with a little bit of lavender oil in the evening as you're getting ready for bed can really help. When we think about our sense of smell and how it goes straight into the center of our brain, it's can be very effective. I also have a like a fuzzy hot pad thing that has it's buckwheat, but it has a little bit of lavender in it, and I throw it in the microwave. Sometimes I put it at the bottom of my bed when it's cold out to warm up where my feet are going to go, and sometimes I just lie in bed with it. Sometimes even over the top of my face, my eyes, just to be able to smell it a little bit. And another thing that can be really helpful is a practice called Yoga Nidra, which is a yoga technique used for sleep. There are, I'll put this in the Facebook page, but there are some apps that do just Yoga Nidra, and there's also Insight Timer app has a Yoga Nidra practice on it as well. And then there's some other great sleep meditations that people have done. There's a one that I like. Jennifer Sweeten does one. I'll put this in the Facebook page as well. And there's sleep meditations on Headspace, 10% Happier, and Calm. They're all apps, meditation apps. And those I find can be really helpful, especially maybe a body scan or something like that to do in the evening, either before you go to sleep and or if you can't fall asleep in the middle of the night, do something that kind of, gives you something to focus on so that you can relax and go back to sleep. Another thing to do that can help with better sleep, is keeping a gratitude journal before you go to bed. So really just taking the time to write down a couple things each day that you are grateful for. And that can shift our thoughts about our situation and any sort of anxiety that we're having or things like that. And if you're having, let's see, if, I guess sort of lastly, if you've kind of tried some of these strategies and are having trouble falling asleep or staying asleep, there are there's lots of reasons why we might not be sleeping. It could have to do with hormones. It could have to do with stress. It could have to do with some of the environmental things. Or if you have any other reason that your sleep does not feel, you don't feel as rested as you should, yes, you think you should in the morning, it's important to talk with a healthcare professional. There may be other things that we can do, and we may not be addressing something that is in particular affecting your sleep. One of the things I did not talk about is sleep apnea, which can be a huge, it's kind of a huge underdiagnosed sleep disorder where we stop breathing in the middle of the night. One of the symptoms of that is some pretty heavy snoring. But there are tests that you can take for it, and it can be quite serious. So that's not the only issue that can be affecting sleep, but it is something to kind of keep in the back of your mind if you, that perhaps that is something that affects you, or maybe even the person you're sleeping with who might be keeping you up at night. So with that, I wanted to answer some questions. And let's see, we do have one that's already in the queue. My trouble with sleep is not waking up rested and struggling to get up in the morning. The first thing I would do is really take a look at how much sleep you're getting. There could be many reasons why you're not feeling as rested as you can, but I think first looking at what your, how much sleep are you actually getting? It can be a really good, it can take some things off the table, or give us a place to start. There are lots of things that can affect us, our cortisol levels, thyroid, our overall energy and metabolism, blood sugar can all kind of have an impact. So it's important to talk with a provider who knows a little bit more about your history and what the target might be for you. And the same thing with supplements. There's tons of herbs and nutrients that can be helpful for sleep, but unless you're talking to a provider that knows your history and some of the other things that you're taking, it could be dangerous to take some of the things that are out there on the market. Any other questions? Okay. Well, thank you. So I'm going to stop the recording, and we'll look forward to talking with you next time.